All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, here to Boots on the Ground Radio. We got Monday. What's today's date, Hecubus? I don't know what
the 7th. The 7th.
The 7th, October 7th. Man, before you know it, October is going to be gone, and boom. Like, it's only how many days to Christmas?
I don't know.
I used to have it up here written on the wall, but it's like it's a way less than that right now because it says, "Well, we can figure it out real quick." Right? I've got the calendar.
Well, you can figure it out. Well, like I was going to say,
I got a countdown.
How many days?
79 days.
Yeah, 79 days.
79 days to Christmas.
I almost Googled it faster than you looked it up in your calendar. Look at that. Google. I love it.
Google.
Yeah. Speaking of weird words, I want to let everyone know that Eric Jones here live on the station. I want to let everyone know he corrupted my son over the weekend.
I did.
By teaching him a word that he should not be saying in public.
A 6-letter word. Is it 6? No.
I don't know.
5. It is a 5-letter curse word.
I tried to text you to curse you out for it, and I was like, wait, how do I spell it? I was like, have I ever actually spelled this word? I don't think I've ever wrote that word, written that word, texted. I don't that was the first time I think I've ever actually done something other than say it. Honestly,
I've Googled it, so I've had to type it in the actual search bar to actually see what the meaning of it is.
Oh, okay.
And it's not that filthy. It's not that perverted or dirted.
No. Well, yeah. Actually, we should probably because I said corrupted my son, and make sure we for those listening before you guys drop off the line. And you're like, oh my God, Eric did something bad. It wasn't that bad.
It was an Army slang term that means everything and anything. So
yes,
you Army vets, what word is it?
Yeah, I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it. Nope, I'm not going to say it.
Maybe we should call Liz and get her on the phone. So can you put Xander on the phone and let him?
Well, let's see what time it is. Yeah, it's 7 o'clock. He's probably up and running laps in the living room by now. So he's
screaming that word.
Apparently, Lee's listening because he said 79 days of real Hallmark movies. So
That's right, Lee. That's right, Lee.
Good morning, brother. Good morning.
With my Hallmark blanket and hot cup of cocoa.
But yeah, so Liz made a stop at the corn maze over the weekend to drop off some stuff, and Eric was there, happened to be there, and he taught Xander a dirty word, and
very dirty.
And he came home excited and excited that he had learned a new word, and he ran up to me. He's like, Dad, I got a word for you. I have to tell you, and I said, what's going on, man? What's going on? He goes, Eric told me that I need to tell you a word, and I was like, okay, what word? And then he told me the word, and I said an explicative in my head because Xander was right in front of me, but I almost said it out loud because I.
Look, you gotta tell the listeners what word it was.
I'm not saying it. You can say it. I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it.
Okay. Guys in the military, there is 2 branches that use the same word that means anything and everything, and that would be Navy and Air Force. Both say this word. The Marine Corps has their own word for it, but the Army has probably one of the weirdest sounding sounds.
What's the Navy Air Force?
Hoo-yah.
Oh, okay.
Hoo-yah.
I didn't. Yeah, I wasn't sure what they're.
Yeah,
if they had a different thing.
Hoo-yah, Master Chief.
Makes sense, Navy. All right.
And Air Force would say hoo-yah, hoo-yah, Tech Sergeant. And Marine Corps would be like, hoorah.
Yeah, they do that weird
stuff.
That like guttural thing.
Yeah.
Which also makes sense.
But what about that Army word?
Go for it. I told you, I'm not saying it.
Dude, I remember it. And I remember one of the first times Sergeant First Class told me, he said, this is a blank free zone. And I was like, yes, we don't have to hear it ever again. But the word is hoo.
We never used it. The last time I heard that phrase was as far as being used right around me was in AIT maybe. I think it was actually basic training. I don't think we even used it in AIT.
Yeah, you don't.
Nah.
But and every time you went to PLDC, WLC,
oh yeah,
ALC, all that. The hua was used. Hua.
That's a good point. Yeah, but
Yeah.
as far as units go and things, that was, I think, AIT might have been. I'm pretty sure it was just basic. I don't think they even used an AIT because the drill instructors were all psyoppers. So
They didn't care.
in
They didn't
AIT,
wanna-
so they were like, no, we're not going.
I just remember that one. I can still see that sergeant in first class's face. He says, "This is a hua-free zone." I'm like,
And yeah, so there's and that's a it's. I don't think that. I mean, there's folks out there. I don't know if Corey's listening; he would understand it, but you don't understand the annoyance of that word unless you're around people who actually
say it all the time.
like just it's their life. like they get excited saying it for some reason. I don't know why.
I remember, I don't know where I was at. I was at a school or something. I don't think it was basic training. But we had this one dude that he had such a high-pitched voice, and he exaggerated it even further. I mean, he'd be standing there in formation, and he'd be like, "Hoo-ah," and it was the... and we were just
I think I'm
turning
laughing at more of the face you made when you said it.
Hoo-ah.
I can't look.
We're like, dude, it's like,
Just
hoo-ah.
stop.
Hooah. You say it like hooah. Or don't say it at all. You know? Not hooah. That'd be like Corey on the ship being like,
That's okay. So
hoo-yah.
so I'm going to, when this gets uploaded, I'm going to download it and I'm going to take that sound bite and I'm going to make that my ringtone for when you call me.
hoo-yah. Hooah. Hooah.
And let's be like, get your damn phone.
And there is there is a catchphrase that I will teach Xander next.
Oh, see,
And see, you can only imagine what it's going to be. He's going to walk up to you one day and he said, "Dad, I was over at the corn maze, and you know what? It was high speed, low drag."
he's not going to the corn maze anymore. That's the thing. You've seen him for the last time yesterday or whatever it was, day before. Was Saturday? Saturday.
Yeah. He's done being around you heathens.
I did teach him when to mind, win the day, though.
Win the mind, win the day.
I did teach him that phrase in
right.
counteraction. I was like, son, let's not say that word anymore. Let's say this one instead.
Does he do it?
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to take, because obviously it's more words, so it's going to take a little while, I think, to
For him to
like where it's just second nature. But
do you think he would learn high speed, low drag?
you're not seeing him, so I don't know.
Soldiers, this is first sergeant. High speed, low drag.
Well, I was going to say, because he actually used the other word. He actually, that's first sergeant. I had to actually use that other word.
Oh, you had to use it around him.
Well, we didn't have to use it around him, but he was all about it, though.
He was all about hooah.
He was excited about it. So if you used it, then you were like, because we had a kid who he went on leave and he like wrecked his car while he was on leave and like just jacked himself up. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like
Bad.
big time. I was surprised they actually kept him in because
Oh,
of how
How bad
because
the injuries
because he
were.
was. So we were in here at Bragg and he was from Seattle and so he actually like was there for like 6 months, like in Seattle, like hospital and everything.
In the
like,
hospital. Okay.
doing, whatever it was, 5 months because he was on leave for a while and stuff. But anyway, he was there for quite a few months, like 5-6
Wow.
months, and then he
Poor
finally
fella.
got back and
Yeah.
and they had him basically do admin while he was still rehabbing and everything.
Yeah.
And a cool guy and everything, but he like he said that word like all the time.
Hooah.
And finally, like one night we went out for some drinks, and I was like, dude, so I got to ask you, like, what's the deal? Like, why? And he's like, it makes him happy. It's like I'm around him all the time,
Because he was around first sergeant.
yeah, he was like his like literally like his assistant. Like I mean. Like assistant, not
Yeah.
just like in the office, but like he was just running around all the time right behind him, like marking down notes and shit. And
Hooah top.
because this was before cell phones and everything, so he he had his little address book and everything, and he was like just running around behind the first sergeant, and he was basically his lackey, but he didn't like want to be. It's just like situation made him that way,
Gotcha.
So he was just like, no, dude, I don't like saying it at all. So, like,
So he was honest with you. He's like, I don't like it, but I just say it to make Top happy.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, poor guy. He was
I wonder,
cool kid.
I wonder if like the Marine Corps or and I was around a bunch of Marines all the time, but I was never really like around a first sergeant or anything. It was always a lot of gunnies around, which is E7. And I'm not sure, like, there's gunny sergeant, there's a master gunnery sergeant, which is E9 if they're not a sergeant major. So that's like the two branches that's the only branch that has like two E9s.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
And I guess it would be kind of like,
well, I mean,
we have sergeant majors and then we have command sergeant majors.
I was just going to say, yeah, is that, but are they're same pay grade?
Yeah.
Right?
A master gunnery and a sergeant major are the same pay grade.
Okay.
Master gunnery is like the expert in their field. It's almost kind of like being a chief warrant.
Yeah.
So, but it's like, they specialize in that MOS, whereas the sergeant major is the administrative side of running the show.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Gotcha.
But it's like, I remember once we were at Mississippi and I was walking through, and it was about the time that multicams were being issued, and we were still in our we called them grays, but it was like our ACUs.
That weird
pattern. Yeah. The most comfortable uniform I'd ever put on, though.
Really?
Like, dude, yes.
Yeah, I never wore those ones.
By far the best comfortable. Everything was Velcro and zippers. Like, there was no buttons whatsoever except, at the crotch. But I was walking, and, and our ranks were right here in the middle.
Yeah, the ranks are, there's that little tab or whatever.
And it made it really hard. So when you're like, oh, shoot, when you see all the stacked chevrons and everything, and you see a little dot in there, and I was like, good morning, First Sergeant, because I didn't see the wreath.
Oh.
I didn't see the wreath for Command Sergeant Major. And he looked at me. He said, man, I've never been a First Sergeant in my life. And it was a Sergeant Major, but not a Command Sergeant Major. So he chose that route. And he stood there and lectured me the whole time. And I'm like, Sergeant Major, I'm sorry. It was very hard to see. I didn't.
Wait, what rank were you at the time?
E6.
Okay. Well, because the reason I was like, I could see him lecturing you if you were like a private or something, but like, come on.
And let me ask you this,
some
too.
Of those guys.
It just went to their head. But, he ended up being a pretty cool guy. Like,
sure.
He was like, dude, I got your back, bro. He's like, just look, man. Just look. And I'm like, all right, I need to wear my glasses, Sergeant Major. But they were there. They were getting ready to deploy. I don't know if they were. And he was with the SF unit. Like, so these are, they were either getting ready to head to Afghan, or we sent a lot of guys into South America.
Was he SF too, or was he just in charge of?
I think he was in charge of, so he may have been like an attaché or something. Yeah. I mean, he went and tabbed out.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, but and actually, that's when I really learned a lot more about those guys, because, you'd see the actual tabbers, wearing the green beret, and then you would see a lot of guys in maroon berets that were like, deploying with them, that were just as badass,
Sure. Yeah.
And doing their things, but. And let me ask you something else too, because we were in the field. I don't know where we were at, but when you're conducting training as a soldier, like, you're the lead instructor.
Gotcha.
And we were knelt down. We were doing medical assessments. We were doing blood sweep and all this stuff. And we had a first sergeant walk up. Okay. I mean, I'm teaching the class. He walks up behind me, and he goes, "At ease." And so we all jump up.
Wait, he said that?
Yes.
But
he said it for himself.
Who does? Who announces themselves?
And I'm like, so we just like jump up, and he's like, "Hey, Staff Sergeant." He's like, "Why didn't you call it for me when you?" I was like, "Well, first of all, I'm actually teaching the class, like." And we were always taught that if you were conducting a class, especially like in like a laboratory situation. I mean, but you call it. I mean, I was showing the guys exactly how to do like blood sweep and all that stuff.
Yep.
And he's like, "Nah, man, when you see a first sergeant, somebody like that walk up, you call at ease." I'm like, "Well, first sergeant, you walked up behind me."
Yeah, first and foremost. I mean, you didn't even see him, but then also, like, the way that I've always understood it in those situations was that you finish the whatever it is that's happening. Like, if you see him walking up, you finish your statement, your whatever, blah blah blah, and then you do it. But it's also still, as I understood it anyway, it's a matter of, like, is that person like walking in like, oh, there's a reason for them to interrupt, or are they just observing? Because if they're just observing, there's no reason to
stop the training.
Exactly.
And that's
the training. The training is first and foremost. If it's issue of like, oh, obviously something's going on, like where we are not going to continue training anymore today,
Yeah.
then yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but that,
And then I stood up, and then he's like, "Oh, Staff Sergeant, what are we wearing a beard for?" I'm like, "Well, sir, do you need to see the pro?" I'm not questioning your integrity, Staff Sergeant. I'm just wanting to ask why you wearing a beard. I'm like, here's my what they call it? They called it chits in the Navy. Profile.
yeah,
Profile.
yeah, profile.
And I'm like, dude, like he just on, and everybody was like, Sergeant Jones, don't worry about it. Like he was not supposed to stop training. I mean, I could feel like him breathing.
It's just
like,
weird that he would like
at ease. It's like,
for no reason.
yeah,
You know, like I said, I get it if it's like, hey, we gotta bug out. We got a mission, whatever. You know, I've had that happen before. Like there was a live fire range we were setting up where like a Humvee came like flying across the range, and we were like, what the hell's going on? Like, who's driving that thing like a bat out of hell and everything? And the first sergeant jumped out and he's like, you come with me. And we're like, oh shit.
yeah.
Like, you know, but there was still no at ease happening.
Call it for yourself.
Yeah, he just grabbed the 3 out of 4 of us and we headed off. But like I've never been in that. I don't think I've ever been in a situation where that happened, where it was a matter of
Well, and you know, you
start calling it ease on themselves.
well, like, if you're in one of the buildings or whatever, and you know everybody's kind of sitting around in the room waiting on, you know, what we're supposed to do, what's the plan of the day. And if a first sergeant walks in, usually he's got an E7 or somebody with him. It's kind of like when the BC walks around, you know, there's another officer and then usually a sergeant major with the BC, and they'll walk in and say, "All right, attention on deck." You know,
Yeah, that type of thing. Exactly. Yeah, they go in and announce that
the
they're
BC
coming
is
in.
here. Yeah. But the BC's not sticking his head in. Hey, attention on deck, y'all. I'm getting ready to walk in.
I'm just picturing my last BC doing that. Because he actually my last BC that I had, he hated that type of stuff. Like he was not about the pomp and circumstance. Like he'd walk in and the newer guys would like jump up. He's like, sit the hell down.
Well, I mean,
like I'm not here for that. I just need to go over here and like I'm just grabbing a file from over. Like calm down.
But you know, when somebody is cool like that, did he ever like have a bad day and then get mad that you didn't do it after you told him several times? Say, look, you ain't got to do that for me.
There was a time where we had
Visitors.
God, it was. I can't remember the rank. It was. I want to say 1 star. 1 star.
Okay.
Either 2 star, 1 star, 1 star, 2 star. Either way, but general came through, and the general came in. We didn't know he was coming at all or anything.
Surprise visit.
Had no warning or anything. And so we were sitting around in our ready room, just doing our thing, shooting the shit, basically.
Yeah.
waiting for
something,
waiting to go off, on another thing. And he walked in, and right behind him, it was almost one of those things of, like you just said, with the E6, E7 comes in first kind of thing. He walked in, he said it, and we thought he was joking.
Yeah.
Because we're like,
sir, you're always like, don't do that.
So he's like, he was like, at ease, and we're just kind of like, we're like, a couple of us chuckled, and we're like, okay, well, whatever. And we went back to what we were doing, and then he's like, and he went off, went on, and we're like, oh shit. And so we all jumped up and we're like, what is happening? We didn't even know what was going on. And then the general walked in, we're like, oh.
Now we know. Like, give us a little head up. Like,
well, and that's what we told him after the fact, because we all went out for beers after, not with the general, but with him. Because we always did. We went to the Sport Parachute Club, and he's like, dude, you guys made me look like an idiot. We're like, dude, you need to let us know. You can't be like saying like don't stand up and then expect us to stand up, like
just out of a sudden,
like a quick phone call. That's all we needed. Something to say, hey,
you got a 1 star walking down the hall.
Yeah, like make this thing, because we were in the little. I mean, we were in these like not Quonset huts, but basically the same type. The ones that bragged like the little white. I mean, they're like look like single wides basically.
Yeah,
know. And that's like each of our battalions was one of those, because we only had 15 guys per battalion. for the ninth, but for ninth bat anyway. As far as or I should say platoon per platoon, not battalion. But I mean, it was like 12, 15 guys at any given time. So it was a very small thing. So they when he did this like not inspection, but whatever they were doing, he was basically just like walking around because each building was the different. So like ours was the Africa, Middle East, and then you had the other guys that were Southeast Asia, and then on and on, South America and everything. So he was basically like touring,
visiting each one.
Like each of
so he was walking outside.
Exactly.
From building to building.
And so he's like coming right in the door.
Yeah, he had plenty of time to alert you.
But yeah, I'm like, come on, like his driver, the other guy, like the E4 that's driving the Humvee, like,
hey, run up to let these guys know. I bet it did make him look bad, dude.
It was and apparently we were the only ones who didn't, because the other guys were like, the sergeants that were in charge of those other units were a little more like they polished boots and things and like stuff, and we didn't. So, they wore berets, we wore patrol caps. like our unit was a little different than the others. We were kind of the misfits, which was fine, but so we weren't prepared for that. So then after the fact, we talked to somebody there. It was like, oh my God, did you hear? Like, dude, he got his ass chewed because you guys were like undisciplined and all this other stuff. And we were like, what the hell? And so then we went out to beers, later, and he's like, man, I got my ass kicked by that general because the way you guys acted, and we were like, oh shit, like sorry, like we didn't mean to, sir, like we didn't know what was going on, and all those other things. We were like, oh.
From that day forward, when he walked in, I would have jumped up. And
no, we did. We did for the next like 3 or 4 times until he got pissed off and was like, okay, enough, guys. I mean, we were all like, we jumped up and we were like, hello, sir. How are you doing today, sir? Like yelling. He was just like, he was like, okay, enough. Like, we're even now. Go back to normal. But he and the funny part was too, he was like a short guy. He was like 5 something, like 2, I don't know, 3. He was the short little dude, but he was from Hawaii. He was, and he was like Hawaiian, not Samoan, but.
You talking about your BC or the 1 star?
No, the BC. He was Tongan, but it was funny because like you'd see pictures in his office of his family, and like all his brothers look like sumo wrestlers compared to him.
He's just a little bitty guy.
The only time, one of the only times I got like hardcore, hardcore smoked in the military was because of him, because he came out to formation one time, and I decided to like hum or whatever the Hawaii Five-0 theme song, the da 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 da.
He found not funny.
Nope. I thought he was going to find it humorous. He did not. Apparently, he was having a bad day.
Yeah,
that day.
And that's the one thing about, man, like you got your super cool, leaders, and they're entitled to bad days too. But
oh yeah, well, and he personally oversaw the smoking that and for those of you listening who are not understanding what I say when I say smoking, I mean like basically you get exercised to death.
Yes,
whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be push-ups. Maybe it's running. Sometimes it's doing the I can't remember the name they call it, but where you stand on like your tiptoes and you have to touch your fingers to the wall thing, and like do like where you raise your heels off the ground back and forth.
Oh yeah,
I can't remember this Tommy 2 something. I don't know. They had a name for that, but anyway.
What was the one that you did? Like it was like you would jump down, do a push-ups.
That was burpees.
Burpees. Yeah.
Yeah, that type of stuff. Basically, they would have you do, and the flutter kicks I think was the favorite.
Yeah,
have you just sit there and do flutter kicks until you just couldn't even raise your legs anymore and you throw up. Yeah, and that's the whole point of any of these exercises is to basically make you throw up and then go a little bit further and then be done. Like that's kind of the thing. And he had me run in front of his Humvee down Ardennes, back and forth. So he got in his Humvee with his driver and he paced me. Running up and down Ardennes for I don't know how long, because unfortunately he knew that I was a runner.
You had some endurance.
So, yeah, I mean I always did my 2 miles in usually just over 10 minutes, on the PT test. So I usually did distance runs with him a lot of the time. So he knew my endurance. So he was like, "You're not getting out of this easy." And I was just like, "Oh, son of a bitch, we're gonna run, aren't we?" And he goes, "Yeah."
He had to have had a super bad day.
Oh, it was, yeah. So, but I will say, as my response was that the next morning when he came into work, he had, I don't know what his reaction was because I wasn't there, I wasn't at headquarters, but there was the action figures with the bubble, whatever that bubble cart, where it's like the action figures where it's that hard cardboard back and then it's like the plastic, shrink wrap or whatever thing.
Yeah.
Bubble cards, I think they call them. But anyway, there was there was one of those sitting on his desk, and it was a keychain of the Hawaiian Punch cartoon figure. The one with the antlers.
Yeah.
And stuff. I left that on his desk for him the next morning. I got called to headquarters that day, and I walked in, and he goes, "Fair enough. Fair enough. You're excused." That's all he said. And I walked back. But he had that look in his eye, like we understood each other, there was no harm, no foul. Like I knew that I fucked up, and he, he did what he needed to do.
Yeah. But
so.
still, man, that was kind of to the extreme.
Oh, it was rough. I think I ended up running about 8 or 9 miles that day before I finally just couldn't do it anymore. Just had to give up. Just had to give up.
Did you ever have somebody? Did you ever smoke anybody?
No, I couldn't do it. Like it
wasn't in you, was it?
No, it was weird to me. Like I got this. The only other time I got smoked was by my team leader, and it was the weirdest situation ever because he was doing it. Excuse me, he was doing it because he like literally had to because he was told by one of our unit commanders that it needed to happen, even though we both knew that it wasn't necessary. Like when what happened was that we were in the field doing some training, and I went to go grab my rifle, and this unit commander said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I was like, I gotta go grab my rifle, sir. And he's like, no, leave that shit there. I need you to move this vehicle. And I'm like, okay. And so like I jump in the vehicle, I got to move it, and he starts losing his mind. He's like, "Why is your weapon still leaning against that other vehicle?" And I'm like, I don't know what's happening right now.
Yeah, you just told me to.
He's like, you never leave your weapon, and I'm like, but you told me to.
Yeah,
like what is it that you want? And the thing
that's a power trip.
Yeah, and I didn't know him. I didn't know what his purpose was. If it had been somebody else, I would have understood the concept. But. Yeah. But there was the first time I had dealt with him, and so he looked at my team leader. He goes, when we get back, you need to smoke him hardcore because you never leave a weapon. And I'm like, motherfucker. And my team leader was like, he's like, dude, you know what we have to do? And I was like, I know. And he's like, this isn't personal. I was like, I know. Like, what do you want? He's like, I don't know, do flutter kicks or something, like whatever. And I'm like, all right.
What's your choice of punishment?
So I'm sitting there doing them, and I'm just like, this is so stupid. And he's like, I know. He's like, he's watching, isn't he? Yeah. All right. I'm just like, just doing the flutter kicks, like as long as I finally was like, I can't do it. And like, did the puke thing. And I'm like, are we done now? And he's like, yeah, let's go have a beer. It was like the weirdest thing because like people picture other people like yelling and screaming and all this. It was like random conversation the whole time. It's like,
yeah.
Like, dude, are we going to go out this weekend? I'm like, I don't know, man. I can't think right now. It's like, I'm doing flutter kicks. And he's like, oh, right. Sorry. Do some push-ups or something too.
Dude, that's the reason I could have never been a drill sergeant.
I just couldn't do it. Yeah. No.
I could not have done it. Yeah. But, I could have been an instructor. Like,
instructing is one thing. Doing the weird thing is, I mean, I understand it. I get it. The breakdown, the build up, yada, yada. But it's.
And it's got to be even worse now.
There's no way I could ever. I mean, back then there was still the wall-to-wall counseling happening, so it made more sense. If you can't,
time out, drill sergeant.
Yeah.
Here's my card.
If you're kinder, gentler thing, then it doesn't make sense. Like you can't.
It's not that way in war.
Soldiers don't happen that way. Yeah, you don't get a timeout.
You can't call home to mommy when it gets bad, do you?
Yeah, there's not even any calls.
But now all troops carry their cell phones.
I was gonna say, like, they can FaceTime, do whatever now. Like back then, like, you were lucky to grab a sat phone for 5 minutes, once a month or something.
Yeah.
If at that.
If that.
It was always reserved for official business, and every once usually it was when my experience was, if it was like a holiday thing like Christmas, we were allowed to call home for a couple minutes just to say, hey, I'm still alive. It wasn't a catch up call of like, hey, so how's Bobby down the street? Like it was literally like, hey, mom, hey, dad, like,
I'm
love
alive.
you guys, like, still kicking, like, you got my address, bye. And then the next guy gets on because you were always worried about losing that connection.
Yeah.
That sat link before the last guy, got in there and yeah. I mean, I can't even imagine just having my phone on me.
Well, dude, it's like even with like basic, because the last time that we went to the range, we drove down to Jackson to use the ranges just to qualify, and we go to the DFAC for lunch, or it may have been for dinner, and like the DFAC quite hadn't opened up yet. Like we were there like a few minutes early.
Oh, gotcha.
And so. And then you start seeing all the troops march up because it is a basic training site.
Right, yeah, that's where I went to basic was Jackson. Yeah.
And so the troops walked up, you kind of let them go first. And the drill sergeants were like, all right, soldiers, now you let's stop. We're here at the DFAC. You go ahead and take out your cell phones and call home if you want to. They were in formation and they put them at ease. And
these were guys that were, they were in basic.
These were basic trainees. Yep. So.
That's nuts. You remember lining up to the payphone?
Yes.
On a Sunday?
Yes.
Like you got your laundry done, you got your other shit done, and then you had that whatever window of time where everyone lined up to the payphones.
Yep.
So they're walking up and you have to, like,
punch in a calling card
doing
number.
the calling card thing, or you do the collect call deal, and but these guys are at the chow hall calling. That's crazy.
Yeah, man. Crazy. And even I remember Mojo, his name was Muchtabai. He is a weapons sergeant. So he left being 68 Whiskey medic and went through selection. And what really blew our mind, because Mojo was cool, and he loved being a medic. He had already been through 68 Whiskey school, already served, knew medicine, was like in nursing school, and then kind of decided this ain't for me. But all this medical training, he goes through selection, and they give him weapons sergeant.
I was gonna say, it's like, so he went what is it, Delta, 18 Delta, right?
18 Delta is the medic.
Is the medic? Yeah, that's where I was assuming he went, but he
went
weapons.
18 Bravo.
Wow.
And we're like, why did you? He's like, dude, they told me I was going to be a weapons sergeant. And it's like, you don't have the choice. He said,
right, yeah, you don't get to pick. I mean, you get to pick to go to selection, but that's kind of like when we were talking about the other day. We were talking about like Navy and stuff like that, where you go through, but they decide what you're going to be.
Yeah. And he said there was a couple guys in my class that had higher ASVAB scores. I'm like, but you were already a medic. Like, you were already 68 whiskey.
Yeah, you kind of proved that you have the ability.
Yeah. He's like, no. And so, his like MOS was like 5 weeks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like,
the weapons is the shortest one, right? Yeah.
And then,
that's crazy.
If it makes sense to the Army,
I mean, yeah,
it don't to us. And if it makes sense to us, it don't to the Army.
Of course, I guess, I mean, though, that being said, him having, like, already having that background and then doing weapon, I mean, that makes him a hot commodity, though.
Yeah.
On the teams.
Yeah.
So,
and then he
still weird, but I mean, it's.
And then he went through Ranger School, like, after wearing the GB.
Got to get that middle tab,
dude. Like, I just, like, what if you failed?
Yeah.
Like that would be, the Rangers would be like, oh yeah, well here we gotta.
Well, and that's the, yeah. I mean, I feel like, I don't know, like, are they harder on those guys,
or are they cooler with them?
You know what? Yeah. Like, how does that dynamic work? Like, I feel like there'd be certain I don't know, whatever they call the instructor guys. I'm sure they have a term for them in Ranger School, but the drill sergeant type guys, like, I'm sure there's some of them who are like, oh, you think you're hot shit, blah, blah, blah. And then there's the other guys who are like, you're hot shit. Those two sides of the coin.
But he said Ranger School was not that bad for him. So I don't know. Maybe I'm sure they stay in shape, and being active duty, he was always doing something.
Oh,
so
sure. Yeah.
When he had the chance to go to Ranger School, he's like, yeah, okay, I'll take it. So,
I mean, it makes sense in that aspect, as far as just looking for different schoolings and being like, well, Ranger School, gotta make that happen. Like I said, gotta get that triple tab. So, because when I was looking at getting out of reenlisting, if I had reenlisted, the first thing that was going to be on the plate for me was going to air assault school.
Yeah.
It was like they were like, yeah, if you reenlist, like the first thing we'll do is send you through air assault school, which I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, what?
Yeah. You weren't asking for it.
How is that like a like, oh, so I get 2 weeks of sliding down ropes. Awesome.
Yeah.
Like that's going to make me sign up.
They say air assault school is one of the I don't know, maybe one of the higher fail rates.
It is.
And I think it's because like everybody tries to go.
Yeah, I think percentage-wise, I think is the reason why, because like people think it's like, oh, 2 weeks and it's sliding down ropes.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's actually physical, and the requirements they have of what you do, but also one of the fail rates is because of people of fear of heights.
Fear of heights. Because
people don't realize, like, they think like, okay, airborne, like I'm jumping out of planes, it's way high up, and then air assault, like, oh, it's like sliding down a pole, like
firefighter pole.
They're picturing like being above the ground where you really almost don't need the rope scenario, and it's not the case.
Yeah.
You're talking 120 feet, I think it is, something like that, for the for full out, drop thing. But because we did a couple of those with missions with ropes and everything, like we got trained ahead of time, and so we didn't go through air assault, but we went through the same type of training.
Yeah, just to know what to do.
Be able to do it. And
well, you have to calculate loads and everything.
Yeah, because the units we were always attached to, they did that shit all the time. So
yeah.
So we had to be able to do whatever they did to be able to go with them.
But you never see them wearing their air assault badge.
Oh no, yeah, no. That's like the only time you see it is if they're in their Class A's or whatever, like the dress uniform type thing. But they don't ever, and I don't blame them. Like, who wants to pay extra money to have another thing stitched onto your uniform? Well, back in that day, anyway.
Yeah, you had to stitch it. Yeah. But even
remember, every time I got a new uniform, I was like, oh, here goes $100 on stupid tags and things.
And basically, you wanted to sew them on there because the pins, you can never get them just perfect.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, and you like if you used pins, then it was like what do you
changed them every day
thing. Yeah, because you had to have that matte black, and you bump up against something and it scuffs it, and then suddenly you can see silver shining. I'm like, why didn't you guys make this with black metal somehow? Like some kind of something. Like, why is it just like brushed on?
Yeah, it was dipped.
Like a feather.
Damn.
Can we get some Rust-Oleum on this? Can we do something to make this stay a little better? But yeah, so it was always that way. But I know there was a lot of people that I knew that got sent to air assault and
never wore the badge.
They didn't. Yeah, they never had it on there or anything, because it was like it wasn't. I guess it from how I looked at it, it wasn't. They never saw it as like a reason to.
Yeah.
It wasn't a high enough thing, or, it's not like a CIB and all the other stuff. Like there's, and I mean, even that, like there's not a lot of guys that.
They wouldn't even wear the CIB.
Put the CIB is on there.
They did or didn't?
No, they didn't. Yeah. There's a lot of guys in my unit that had it, that didn't. Like you'd see them, and it was kind of funny because like you'd be walking around all these different guys, and then we'd have to, 2-3 times when I was in that we actually had to put our dress uniforms on.
Gotcha.
Somebody would walk up, you're like, God,
look at all the shit you got.
Like I remember this one guy. He was fluent in like 7 or 8 languages, like hardcore fluent, not like I can conversational. Like he knew them, and everything from like Southeast Asian languages to Middle Eastern to like Serbian, and I mean just all over the board. He was a hell of a guy, but very. I mean, he didn't look the soldier type, especially nowadays. Like he wasn't all like jacked up and had like sleeve tattoos and all the other weird stuff they're doing. He was the most unassuming guy you'd ever know. Looked like an accountant basically, like, walking out of an office. But he was hardcore, like one badass motherfucker. Like he had a bunch of different disciplines of martial arts that he was a master of. I mean, just amazing. But the first time I saw him in dress uniform, I was like, what the like his stack of ribbons was that one of those ones where like he had to do the offset because of the collar.
Yeah.
So he had like that. So it was like full stack and then like 3 and then 2 and then 1. Like,
yeah.
Just incredible. Like he had he didn't have the Medal of Honor, but he had pretty much everything else.
Wow.
Like Bronze Star, Silver Stars, like all the things and stuff, and
then the badges on top of the ribbons.
Yeah.
So.
And most of his ribbons had the oak clusters on them.
So multiple times.
Yeah. I was like, holy crap. Like, because you would never known.
He never
talked his uniform, all he had on his uniform was his wings. And then, of course the unit patch and stuff, but that was it. But he could have had a bunch of he had the CIB because he had transferred over from infantry.
Okay.
And everything. So he had all that stuff. He had the ropes.
The blue rope, the cord.
Yeah. So yeah, just all that stuff.
Sweet.
But it was just great. It was like, what? Like he was like walking out of some movie or something,
Here's John Rambo.
And a lot of the guys who did the same thing, they were like, who the hell is that? Like walking, because he had his beret on and everything. That was the first time I'd seen him wear a beret. Just all this. I mean, none of us wore that anyway, but the berets, other than in dress uniform.
Yeah.
On those.
And y'all were in greens.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I miss those.
At first, and then we switched over to the desert uniform. The
second,
second,
say like dress uniform.
Oh yeah. I thought you were talking about because we had the BDUs, but then when I got to my unit, we pretty much always wore the
desert.
The deserts, not the
3-stripe.
There was the chocolate chips first.
Yeah.
And then, but those were phasing out just as I came to the unit. So my first deployment, I got issued a couple sets of chocolate chips that were like way too big for me. The supply guy was like, dude, like this is what I got. Like we're phasing these out, so they're not going to fit you. And it was like I had my belt like all like like latched up. But I'll have to show. I have a picture actually of sitting in the back of a Deuce with a buddy of mine. I'll have to send it to you. Where I'm wearing them, and you get like it doesn't fit at all. Like not even
that had
close.
to be the most uncomfortable thing to have to keep pulling your pants up.
Oh yeah,
that.
And it was hot as hell too because they weren't. It was before they went to like the second desert camo that came with the 3-star like you were talking about. Those things were so comfortable. And those boots, the desert boots. God, they were like slippers. I love it. When we switched over to those, like we wore them all the time, and it was like at the time you were only supposed to wear them if you were getting ready to deploy, and we were like, no, screw that, we're just wearing.
Yeah.
Like we're the Middle East Africa unit anyways. Like this is our uniform, and so we made the switch. So we'd get there'd be those times where you, especially at the schoolhouse, you'd go there and people were like, oh, where are you headed? And we're like up to class, and they're like, no, I mean like you got the desert uniform on. Where are you headed? We're headed to class. we're like, oh, you mean deployment? Oh no, we don't have one of those today. I mean, maybe tomorrow. Who knows? But we'll. And then you get that question of like, well, you're only supposed to wear those if you have deployment orders, and we're like, oh, we do. We just have standing deployment orders.
Yeah, because y'all were.
Check in with me tomorrow.
We'll probably be headed somewhere.
Oh man, those are the good old days. The good old days.
They were, man. They were. I just think about everybody that works for us. What is Shiloh doing? Look at him. That cord is moving.
Wagging the tail.
Oh.
I was worried he's like chewing on it, but it's just
he's just wagging.
Just wagging the tail. Yeah, there's I don't know. I don't want to be one of those weird old guys who's like, because I don't feel I'm that old, but I feel like sometimes I am because I'm like, oh, this newer generation, this younger generation, they don't have the ethics and the this and that, but like I just feel that it's not there. And I'm not saying that nobody does. I mean, obviously there's people out there and people will say, well, it's because of of how they're raised or this or that, and I'm like, no, it's the culture. Like the culture itself has shifted to where you work as least as possible to make the most money.
Yep.
Whether it's whether it's being an influencer of some sort, and you just record videos and then put them up, and you don't do anything. You have that sedentary lifestyle of playing video games all night and then complaining in the morning because you played video games all night.
Yeah. I'm so tired of staying up all night playing games.
Like when I'm tired in the morning, like this morning I was dragging, and it was because I was up late working on stuff. It wasn't because I was playing video games.
Russ, I thought you were a Call of Duty guy.
It's just nope. I've never played that game.
I haven't either.
I've literally never. The last game I played was it was a game called Red Alert. I don't know if you've ever.
I don't remember.
But this was back in the '90s that I played. Like that was the last time I played a video game. It was back in the '90s. I don't know. Like when I got to adult age, I stopped playing video games.
True. Well, dude, what about the dudes that play airsoft that never served in the military?
Oh, the airsoft, yeah. It used to be paintball, and then airsoft became. I think it's bigger than paintball, and I'm not sure why. Because to me, I don't like paintball. Well, at least in the early days of paintball, it was about like accuracy and stuff. With airsoft, like these guys are like you've got like these full auto. I mean, it's like, like how can you miss?
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah.
It's just weird, and I see these I see videos of like guys who are like snipers, where they're
Playing airsoft.
playing airsoft and sniping people, but it's still at the same time I'm like, yeah, but you're like 50 feet from the people, like 50, 100 feet, like
I just
it's weird.
I see the money that these guys spend on it, and they never served in the military, and I'm like, wow. Like, is this their way to feel tactical?
I mean, for many of the ones that I've seen that who are like really into it, that's
they've regretted not going in, so they've got to play this game.
Yeah, like I was on a couple different teams with paintball in the early days when it first started coming out and everything, and I got out of it when they started getting when it was all about how many rounds you could put down range and stuff. Like I got out of it then because I was like, well, this is no point anymore because you just have a bunch of guys like just firing a bunch of paintball down range. Like, what's the point,
Yeah.
But back in those early times, there was a guy that I played with for a while that was like, I mean, he was like so hardcore like he had like all of his gear was like he wore like camo and everything and had his jersey over top of the camo, but like he was all camoed up and stuff and even his face. Like he put, I'm like, dude, we're behind pallets in the middle of a football field. Like, what?
Yeah, this is a team building.
They know we're here.
This isn't tactical at all.
And he spent thousands of dollars on his
stuff.
on his guns.
Well, it's like with paintball, I could really see that being a team building event. Like, say like let's just say at Equip Expo, like
sure,
Elite Landscape guys want to take on
right.
Careful,
they're gonna like people hear this, and all of a sudden next year there's gonna be a paintball tournament.
But and it's just for fun, we're in our Elite Landscape shirts.
Exactly.
We're not out there in multicam. And this is literally, like I said, just sneaking around the pallet and just team building and just having fun. But these guys that take it way too far, you can see them. They'll walk into a restaurant one day, and you're like, "Oh, you guys with SWAT team?" No. Sheriff's Department? No. We had an airsoft tournament down the road. Oh, okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I know what this stuff cost, and you guys are really, really spending it on.
That same guy that I was talking about, who was all hardcore and stuff. I remember there was a tournament that we entered. It was 3-man teams, and so it was actually my roommate and I and him, because our usual teammate wasn't able to make it to the tournament, and so we picked him up, and it was funny because I was actually, it was my girlfriend at the time. We were living together and everything, but we were also like we were roommates as well as dating. Like we kind of off and on dating thing, but she she was awesome. She was badass on the field. Like you would never know that she
Was a
could just,
paintballer.
just go for it. You know, like
Yeah.
she didn't care. She'd take a hit to the neck and just be like, motherfucker, I'm going to get you on the next one. You know, even though it was like a big welt and everything. You know, like she was into it. It started raining and he left. Like not even raining. Like it was like
A
a
mist.
couple drops started happening. We're like, oh, it looks like we're going to be getting really wet today. And he was like, oh, dude, I'm out. I can't do this. And we're like, what? Are you serious? He's like, yeah, no, dude, you know how much I spent on this equipment? Like, I can't get this stuff wet. And he left.
Wow.
So it was just the two of us in a 3-man tournament for the rest of
Wow.
the day. Like we won the first round, and then from there it was just the two of us. So we were out. Like I think we won the next one, and then we were out after that or something, because we just you just
Well, see, like I'm just used to like seeing paintball, almost kind of like some of these TV shows that are on at night. You know, you see the women in, like sports bra and leggings.
Yep.
And the dudes like in workout clothes, and it's, they're basically it's an athletic event versus a tactical event.
yeah.
So
And that's what a lot of it was, and that's part of the other reason why I got out of because it just became, like I said, it was all about rapid fire. So you'd have somebody out in the back who would just sit there and just keep double tapping their trigger at the same points to where you basically couldn't move until they had to reload, and then it took all the
fun out of it.
yeah, and there was no tactical and anything like that. But we used to go up in the woods and do it, where we'd get a bunch of friends together, and that was a lot more fun because you'd basically, one team would go up and they'd have like 15 minutes to go and get in place, and then the other team would come. So it was like knew you were walking into an ambush.
Yeah.
So it made it a lot more fun because you're just like, oh shit, okay, here we go, and then like the first shot would happen, and then from there it was like mayhem. But we also did my favorite one that we did was dueling, where we had these paintball guns that looked like pretty close to pistols. They were a little bit larger, obviously, because of the paintball, the gauge. But they took the little CO2 cylinder instead of being the big canister and all that stuff. So it was all self-contained, and they had, I think, like 3 or 4 rounds that you would load into them. And so we would go out onto this fire break road, and we'd stand, whatever, like 10 feet apart or whatever, do the whole thing, like where you'd walk, I should say, away from each other, and then at the mark that we had lined down, you'd flip around and you'd shoot. And the only thing we just had we had the mask on, so that way you didn't get hit in the face. But other than that, we didn't have any kind of clothing on. In fact, actually, we purposely only were able to wear T-shirts or tank tops because we wanted it to be like as painful as possible. So we did that all like that was our afternoon. We'd start drinking beers and stuff like that after the day's games, and then because we'd go out camping. That was the whole thing. We'd be out camping, but we'd do that during the daytime. But the duels were always fun because everyone would line up and, like on the sidelines, and like place bets and stuff on who was gonna get hit, first and everything. So
that was true fun. That was sportsmanship. That wasn't somebody that, I wish I'd have served in the military. I'm gonna play airsoft.
Oh no, and nobody. I mean, like myself, my dad, and there was a buddy of mine who was in the 82nd that were there. That were all, we had all been in the military, but there was like we didn't. Like, it wasn't about me.
It wasn't about being.
We weren't pretending that we were at war or anything like that. It was just we were having fun.
Yeah.
Versus just these other guys that, like you talked about, where it's
overboard, man. Overboard.
Like, if there was a dress uniform for it, they would have worn it around to every place they went. So, like, I mean, I think the only time that people, where I'm like, oh, people are going to know I was in the military, is when I park at the veteran parking spaces at the Harris Teeter.
Well, Veterans Day.
And I'm not expecting anyone to come and be like, oh, you served. I'm just like, this is convenient.
But you're like me. Because Veterans Day is just right around the corner. And
oh shit, it is, isn't it? It's like a month away or so, give or take. Yeah.
And so,
right about that.
I'm just very quiet about it. Like I don't. I mean, dude, at a ball game, it's hard for me if there's any veterans here, stand up. I just kind of sit there.
It's always awkward for me for those in those situations where it's like, I appreciate the the gesture, but at the same time, it's awkward.
Yeah.
You know, just like when like I hand my license to somebody, because I had my veteran status on there on my newest license that I got, and
From Iowa or North Carolina?
from Iowa. Yeah, I'm still on the waiting list for North Carolina.
What?
It's like 3 months to get your license changed in North Carolina.
You can't. Why don't you just go walk in? I walked
Because
in.
I did a walk-in, waited for 8 hours that day, and nobody canceled their appointment, so I never got in. And then I talked to some people, and they had the same thing. They were like, "Yeah, no, it's walk-ins are almost always
You got to go like
you
on a
can't make it
Tuesday.
happen." So
Like they say Tuesdays are the least
is
busiest
it
day.
okay?
Because I got out of class at Tech, and see, mine had expired. My birthday was August 30th.
Well, you were just getting yours renewed, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a different
Oh.
situation. If you're getting
okay.
it switched, it's a whole
Switching
different
it
thing,
to North
Yeah.
Carolina. Gotcha.
because Liz got on the list when we first got here. She found out that there was a list and everything, and she got onto it, and it was like her appointment was like 2 months out. But then she got a call there's an app or something where you can look on, and like if someone cancels their
Cancels.
appointment, you can pick it up, and
Yeah.
that's what she ended up doing. But
Gotcha.
But that was like
she's
a
got
month
her.
out.
She's got her North Carolina. Yeah.
yeah, which actually because I had just gotten mine switched like
Oh, to Iowa.
I don't know a couple months ago, or a couple months before I moved here, I should say, on it but yeah, there's been a couple of times where someone's asked for my ID for whatever reason, and
Well, thank you for
and
your service.
they're like, oh, thank you for your service. And I'm like, you're welcome, or what do I say? I don't know.
And
It's such an awkward. I don't know.
Well, and it was the last time. When was it? Jennifer and I ate somewhere. And dude, I did have a camouflage hat on. And we went to pay, and they're like, this ticket's already been paid for. And I'm like, who in the heck? Something like, and I don't even know where, I think it was. Oh yeah, it was her and I our first time going to Boone. I took Sydney up to actually get her moved in, and then me and her stayed one night there, and then we ate Cracker Barrel before we left. And when I went to pay, and somebody had already paid for it, and I'm like, "How in the world?" And she's like, well, "It's got to be because you have a camo hat on." But how did that delineate?
Yeah,
You know.
it's weird.
But, I guess it's, dude, when you walk into a restaurant, do you notice can you tell who's a veteran and who's
Oh,
not?
yeah.
Like, it's just, I think we can pick each
Yeah.
other out.
You can tell vets. You can tell. I mean, first responders. I mean, a lot of times if they're active duty, whether that's first responder or military,
Yeah.
it's the haircut. But
Yeah. Yeah.
there's always that line. Like when I was working at the restaurant there in Iowa, there was because we were right in downtown.
Yeah.
And we were maybe 2 blocks from the sheriff's office or
Yeah.
whatever police station thing, whatever they call it. And guys would come in. There was people would come in where they were in uniform and stuff. So obviously,
Yeah.
and then there was a group of like detectives that would come in quite often, and you could tell them right off the bat, like the minute they walked in, even if it was the first time you'd seen them, you still knew
That they were, they were law enforcement.
before you saw the sidearm, you knew.
Yeah.
But there was also a lot of them that would come in on their days off with the family and stuff, and he just was like,
knew.
oh, high and tight. There we go.
Yeah.
There it is. There's
I
there's
can't stand
there's-
high and tight.
there's the thing, and I'm like, why do people why?
Why?
Like, I get it if you're new,
Yeah.
but why continue?
But, dude, even
I don't like.
even after basic training.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I
Like
push the
up,
hair
up
to
through
the
basic
limit.
training, fine, because you have to. You either shaved head or the high and tight is like that's the option you get.
Yeah.
Like if you want to have hair, high and tight.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
There is
shaved.
no-
There-
yeah.
But these guys that they've been in for 10, 15, 20 years and they still were rocking
Wore
the
the-
high and tight, or they retire and they're still rocking the high and tight. I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, I mean, and actually the picture I was talking about with that first deployment.
Yeah.
I mean, like my hair is like so
So long.
because we were in the back of the Deuce driving. We were in Egypt at the time, headed out somewhere else, but we were crossing Egypt in this Deuce and a half, and we were in the back of it, and so we had our patrol caps off, because we didn't want them blowing away. But the guy next to me, high and tight, and then you see.
Yours is
My-
just
I mean, it's not like blowing around waving, but pretty close. I mean, it was, and that was like early on. That wasn't even the length I actually grew it out to. That was like I was in the process of growing it out at that point. Because I had been out of, at that point it was, I think I'd been with my unit for maybe a month, 2 months.
Yeah.
Out of language school, so I'd been in for a year and a half at that point ish. With all the different training I had to do. So.
and you just let it grow while you're in language school.
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there was no really.
Because the only time you could see it, because I mean, I was wearing my beret because that was before I got to my unit, so that was what I had to wear. Like we weren't allowed to wear the patrol caps, but you'd get to the schoolhouse, and then when you got in the classroom, obviously you could take it off. But I was around a bunch of SF guys and stuff, and so they all had longer hair.
Yeah. So it didn't matter.
Nobody. Yeah, they didn't even bat an eye about it. So.
All right,
yeah.
brother. Our show is completo.
It's already that time.
Yeah, it is 8.
We got some trees to drop, some yards to mow.
trees.
Getting ready for Equip Expo.
That's right. 1 week tomorrow. Hooah. Hooah. Hooah.
And that being said, we will see you tomorrow. Win the mind, win the day.
All right, guys. Take care. We'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning here on Boots on Ground Radio.